Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Madam Nur Hafizah. My name is Nur Aishatul Husna and I will be presenting the analysis of corporate financial performance, a trend and cooperative study. First of all, the background of the companies that I've chosen, the MSC Malaysia and Media Prima Berhad. With its perfect commerce environment coupled with availability of talent assets, MSC Malaysia has pulled in participation from major worldwide ICT companies to create and have their leading-edge innovations within the designated MSC Malaysia Cyber Cities and Cyber Centers. Malaysia Digital Economic Corporation (MDEC) may be an interesting 12-field government-owned corporation built up to encourage the development and advancement of MSC Malaysia, the head Malaysian ICT initiative. Recorded on the Moose board of Bursa Malaysia, Media Prima Berhad, Media Prima, or the group, is Malaysia's thriving fully integrated media company with a total collection of media-related businesses in television, print, radio, out-of-home publicizing, substance creation, and advanced media. Media Prima is the owner of the New Straits Times Press, Malaysia's Berhad, Malaysia's biggest distributor with Three Nations news brand, New Straits Times, PH Berita Harian, and Harian Metro. We move to financial ratio analysis for the MSC Malaysia trend analysis. This is the calculation made out of the past 3 years from 2018 to 2020. The first one is liquidity ratio. There are current ratio and quick ratio. Current ratio is to measure the ability of the company to pay off its current obligation with current assets. It tells how a company can maximize the current assets on its balance sheet to fulfill its current obligation and other payables. There is an increase in the current ratio in 2019, which is 1.58, but somehow it decreases back in 2020, which is 1.38. It shows that the company is capable to pay off its short-term liabilities and expenses. Quick ratio is to measure the ability of the company to pay off its current obligations with the most liquid assets. Liquid assets are those current assets that can be rapidly changed over into cash with negligible effect on the cost gotten within the open market. Unfortunately, from the year 2018, it decreases until the year 2020, which is 0.25 to 0.18. The lower the ratio is, the minor of the company paying off its current obligation with the most liquid assets. Next is activity ratio. There are inventory turnover and average collection period. Inventory turnover is to measure the efficiency of the company's inventories. Calculating inventory turnover can offer assistant businesses make superior choices on pricing, manufacturing, marketing, and purchasing unused inventory. From 2018 until 2020, it is clear that the company had decreased its ratio from 2.44 to 1.13. A low inventory turnover could signal a poor sale. The company is inefficient in its inventory management. Average collection period is to determine the average length of time taken by the company to collect its debt from creditors. Companies utilize the average collection period to create beyond any doubt they have sufficient cash on hand to meet their financial obligations. In 2019, it has been decreased to 6.1 days compared to 2018, which is 8.17 days. Unfortunately, in 2020, it soared highly to 11.83 days. As the ACP is high through the recent year, it indicates poor sales and slow collection for the company. Third is leverage ratio. There are debt ratio and time interest earned. Debt ratio is to indicate in the company's financial structure. It can be translated as the proportion of a company's assets that are financed by debt. It shows an increase throughout those 3 years. Sadly, the higher the debt ratio, the greater the debt level. It will reduce the company's profit as it is subjected to high fixed payment obligations. Time interest earned is to measure the ability of the company is paying its interest obligation. The result could be a number that appears how numerous times a company may cover its interest charges with its pre-tax earnings. There is an increase in 2019, 3.24 compared to the year before, but in 2020 it decreases back to 2.7, which does not require the company to indicate in the position where continue making payment on its interest obligation. And lastly, for MSC Malaysia trend analysis, the profitability ratio, gross profit margin, and operating profit margin. Gross profit margin is to measure the efficiency of the company's operation. It is regularly expressed as a percentage of sales. In 2019 and 2020, the gross profit margin maintains the same, which is 0.16. It increases from 2018, which is 0.12. However, the higher ratio will indicate lower COGS relative to sales. And lastly, operating profit margin shows the company's ability to control all costs except for interest and taxes in its operation. Higher ratios are by and large way better, outlining the company is proficient in its operations and is nice at turning sales into profits. Same as before, in 2019 and 2020, the operating profit margin maintains the same, which is 0.05. Again, it increases from 2018, which is 0.04. This will lead to a higher profit since it indicates a lower cost structure. Next, we move to Media Prima Berhad trend analysis. The first one, again, liquidity ratio. It has been decreasing in 2019, which is 0.86 compared to 2018, it's 1.16. In 2020, it increases back to 1.07. As the ratio is increasing back, the ability of the company to pay off its current obligations is better. And as for the quick ratio, again, in 2019, it has been a decreased ratio, which is 0.85, and compared to 2018 is 1.08. It increases back to 1.02 in 2020. Since it increases back, the ability of the company to pay off its current obligations with the most liquid assets is fine. Move to the second one, activity ratio. In 2019, the inventory ratio soared to the highest compared to 2018 and 2020. Back in 2020, it decreases to 30.15. The company became efficient in its inventory management, but only for a while. As it decreases again, it signals the poor sales of the company. Throughout these 3 years, the SCP seems to be increasing, although in 2020 it only decreases to 80.53 from 81.4 in 2019. Unfortunately, the higher ACP will indicate poor sales and slow collection to the company. As for leverage ratio, unfortunately the debt ratio getting higher throughout these 3 years. Same as before, in 2020 it only decreases to 58.08% from 58.46% in 2019. It will lower the company's profit as the debt level is bigger. And since the tie is negative from 2018 till 2020, the company could not make the payment on its interest obligation. Lastly, for the profitability ratio for Media Prima Berhad trend analysis, in 2019, it decreases to 0.23 compared to the year before, which is 0.26. But in 2020, it increases to 0.3, which is the highest throughout these 3 years. As it gets higher, it indicates lower COGS towards sales. And lastly, again, because the tie itself negative straight from these 3 years, it cannot indicate the lower cost structure and will result in a deficient profit to the company. Moving forward to the MSC Malaysia and Media Prima Berhad cross-sectional analysis for the year of 2020. The first one, liquidity ratio. As for current ratio, Media Prima Berhad has a better ability to pay off its current obligations compared to MSC Malaysia, as the current ratio of the company is lower. While for the quick ratio, Media Prima Berhad again leads to having a better ability for the company than MSC Malaysia. For activity ratio, inventory turnover, Media Prima Berhad has a higher ratio where it will make the company more efficient in its inventory management. As for the MSC Malaysia has low inventory compared to the other, where it can signal poor sales or high inventory levels. An average collection period, both companies are facing higher ACP, which will indicate poor sales and a very lenient collection policy. In leverage ratio, debt ratio, the difference between MSC Malaysia and Media Prima Berhad is very close. This can be considered as the higher ratio for both companies in the same year, as it will be less desirable since the debt level is bigger. Time interest earned. For MSC Malaysia, it indicates the company is in the position to continue making payment on its interest obligation without difficulty, while Media Prima Berhad, they could not proceed with the payment since TI is negative. And lastly, profitability ratio. Gross profit margin, Media Prima Berhad has the highest ratio compared to MSC Malaysia, and it will indicate lower COGS relative to sales. And for operating profit margin, MSC Malaysia will have the highest profit and indicates a lower cost structure. For Media Prima Berhad, they will receive a flat profit for the company. Here goes the conclusion and recommendation for both companies. In conclusion, we can see that the difference between MSC Malaysia and Media Prima Berhad, both companies' financial ratios and the company's performance in managing their finances are stated differently. They both have their own poor and great presentation in running the company's financial status. In liquidity and activity ratio, we can see that Media Prima Berhad has led in representing the higher ability of the company to pay off its current obligations, while in leverage and profitability ratio, MSC Malaysia has led as the company with a great ratio calculated. This is because starting from the leverage ratio in Media Prima Berhad is attributable by the TI, whereas the company has been facing a high financial crisis. However, a lesson can be taken from both companies by the way how they handle their financial production. We need to always improve on our ways to maintain the financial on its level. Here are a few recommendations I would like to give to both companies. Firstly, MSC Malaysia needs to improve on its liquidity ratio so the company will be able to meet the short-term obligations. As well as on the activity ratio, it needs to show how effective the company is by using its assets and inventories. This will indicate how well the company can convert its receivables. Lastly, as mentioned before, Media Prima Berhad has a bad time interest earned results. They need to restructure their financial income. They should have lowered the debt of the company as it can be controlled from the profit outcome. The company needs to take caution with their profit earned by not wasting on in unnecessary payments such as that. That's all from me. Thank you.